Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today. This is your primetime destination. Tuesday night, let's tell you what are our big talking points, exclusive guests and headlines tonight. On the news today, the big question, can coronavirus now lead to another surge? This as London has gone in for a lockdown. Our newsmaker, Dr David Nabarro, special envoy to the World Health Organization, joining us. Also our newsmaker, Dominic Raab, UK Foreign Secretary, on the protests in London and much more. But first, the 9 headlines at 9 tonight. Prime Minister Modi reaches out to farmers again, dispels fears on new farm laws, accuses the opposition of spreading lies. Farmers say they want nothing but repeal of a new agriculture law. The standoff continues. British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab tells India today farm laws are an internal matter of India, assures that nobody will be allowed to foment violence against India when asked about alleged pro-Khalistan rallies in the United Kingdom. It's an India Today exclusive.
For those that either incite violence or foment terrorism or any other harm, whether it's in the United Kingdom or to India.
Political showdown after winter session of Parliament is called off due to COVID. Congress says the centre is evading a debate on farm laws. London to be relocked as a new variant of coronavirus causes a spike in infections. WHO's key points person Dr David Nabarro tells India today, be prepared for another corona surge over the next few months. Storm erupts after former President Pranab Mukherjee's latest memoir. Son wants the publication stopped. Slams motivated excerpts critical of Sonia and Manmohan. Daughter wants the book published. High drama in Karnataka as Congress MLCs forcefully removed the deputy chairman. Legislative Council session called off before Yediyurappa can table the contentious anti-cow slaughter bill. Bengal BJP leaders meet the Election Commission, allege no rule of law in the state, demand fair polls and an early deployment of central forces. Poll panel to visit the state on the 17th of December. Actor Kamal Hassan now hints at allying with co-star Rajnikant on the political field, declares he's ready to let go of any ego for the welfare of people, says the two Abhinetas will help each other if needed. Electoral College votes Joe Biden as the next US president, brings an end to the legal battle unleashed by Donald Trump. Biden says democracy has prevailed. But our top focus today, India's battle with coronavirus, where today the country has recorded the lowest number of daily coronavirus cases since July. That's right. India today recorded 21,941 new COVID cases. That's on December 14th, where the last numbers are available. This is lower than the numbers recorded on July 3rd. That is 22,718. India had hit nearly a peak of 1 lakh fresh cases on the 11th of September. So as you can see from the graph, from July went up to September. Now it's steadily come down. Now, while that may be the good news, here's the not so good news. Well, the United Kingdom claims that a new variant of coronavirus has now been discovered. It's been enough for London to decide to go in for another lockdown. This at a time when the United States has begun administering Pfizer's COVID vaccine. The question then is, vaccines being administered on one side, but a fresh coronavirus strain detected on the other. What does it mean for the fight against corona? In a moment, I'll be joined by the World Health Organization's top point person on coronavirus in an exclusive. But before that, take a look at our top story tonight.
History unfolding in the United States, the country worst hit by the COVID pandemic. The first vaccinations being administered to healthcare workers who are at the front lines of the war on the virus. New York City nurse Sandra Lindsay, originally from Jamaica, was the first American citizen to be vaccinated.
I feel hopeful today, relieved. I feel like healing is coming. I hope this marks the beginning to the end of a very painful time in our history.
In Kentucky, 5 healthcare workers were the first to be vaccinated. Acting Defense Secretary Christopher Miller also received a COVID-19 shot.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I'm going to be fine. No, that's it?
That's it.
Oh, come on. That didn't hurt at all.
The first doses of the FDA-authorized COVID-19 vaccine developed by Pfizer have been delivered to all the states, the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. The United Kingdom, the first to roll out vaccination, has identified a new variant of the novel coronavirus. Officials fear the mutant is causing the sudden jump in infections. London is on high alert. The city will be placed under Tier 3 lockdown, the toughest restrictions in the UK.
We are aware of this genetic variant, I think reported in about 1,000 individuals in England, and the authorities in the UK and under Matt Hancock's leadership obviously are looking at the significance of this. We've seen many variants, as we've always said here. This virus evolves and changes over time, and we've seen different variants emerge. The question is, what is their significance in public health terms?
The detection of the mutant makes vaccination key to fighting the pandemic. The fear now is whether the new variant will contribute to a fresh surge next year. Bureau Report, India Today.
So as the world gets ready for this big corona vaccine rollout, I'm joined by a very special guest, Dr. David Nabarro, Special Envoy to the World Health Organization on COVID-19, joins me from Geneva. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Nabarro. Several countries, the US, UK, Singapore, Bahrain, Canada, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, all granting approvals to the Pfizer vaccine for emergency use approval, other vaccines in the pipeline, Russia ordering health authorities to begin mass vaccinations of its own Sputnik V vaccine. How do you see this rollout, Dr. Nabarro?
Thank you very much indeed. The first thing to say is that the pandemic is moving very quickly across the world still. And I do want everybody to be conscious of the continued need to try to stop the spread of this virus by behavior changes and also by well-organized public health programs. The vaccines are becoming available, and this is wonderful news. But there's a huge journey between having a relatively small number of vaccines available now that they've been given an emergency use authorization, and then having all the people who need to be immunized in the world actually receiving the vaccine. It's likely to be several years' job to enable everybody to be immunized, and it's going to be complex. So I just want everybody to appreciate how long it's going to take to complete the immunization task, and not to imagine that it can be done really quickly. So let's continue to work hard to stop this virus from spreading.
I'll come to some of the questions that in a way your answer raises, particularly on vaccine distribution and immunization. But you seem to suggest that the worst is not over. And I heard Bill Gates also seemingly suggesting that the next 6 months could be critical. What's your sense? Because here in India, we feel that perhaps the worst is over. Number of daily cases are coming down. Recoveries are rising. Are you saying that we could have a second wave? Why do a few people believe that the worst may not be over? The next 6 months are crucial.
Well, I'm very pleased that you asked me this question. You know, the virus has not changed. It's the same virus. And there's still many hundreds of millions of people, indeed billions of people, who are susceptible to the virus. And I believe that just as we've seen a pretty massive resurgence in Europe in the last 2.5 months, I also believe that we will see resurgences in other regions as well. It's happening in South Africa. It's happening in parts of Latin America. I believe it will happen in Southeast Asia and in South Asia. And so I would really caution everybody not to believe that it's gone. Instead, to use the time ready for the next surge, because it could be at least as unkind as the last surge has been.
So you're not ruling out also, Dr. Nabarro, potentially another surge even in countries like India, even though our daily cases are coming down?
Yes, I am not ruling it out. Your cases are coming down, which is very good news. The overall work of the different health sector actors throughout the country has been quite remarkable. But the reality is this virus is still being transmitted in India, and it's still a highly infectious virus. So if I were in central government or in state government, I would be asking everybody to prepare for the virus to surge back again, probably initially in quite densely populated areas, but also spreading to more rural areas as well. I think it will come back. I just don't know when.
Well, that's in a way a worrying sign, some would say, Dr. Nabarro, because that means that 2021 doesn't necessarily mean the end of the virus. There's been a sense of euphoria because of the vaccines in particular, that maybe with the vaccines being rolled out, we could be closer to the end of the virus. And you seem to suggest that a vaccine per se is not enough.
Well, it's at the moment it's not enough because we're a long way away from everybody being immunized. And so what we can say is the vaccine will reduce death rates among at-risk populations, and that's a wonderful thing. But the real requirement over the coming months all over the world is to stop these surges of the virus building up. Now, of course, I am required to look everybody in the eye and tell them what I perceive to be the truth. And sometimes it's inconvenient. Sometimes it's not very nice. But I think I have to do that, sir, because if we're not straight with each other about what might happen, we then can get very frustrated if we end up with a position that's worse than we thought it was going to be. I think I have to tell you, and I have to tell your viewers, that there is a very strong likelihood that this virus will surge back into parts of India. I don't know where, and I don't know when, but I do think it's worthwhile being prepared and not somehow looking at each other and saying, aha, the virus is gone, job done. I think it probably will surge back during 2021, and that's why I want everybody to be ready. It will take such a long time to get everybody immunized.
Let's come to that. Let's come to that issue of mass immunization, because there are questions already over safety and efficacy. The UK has begun administrating people with the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. 4 people developed Bell's palsy, a form of temporary facial paralysis. The British medical regulator has warned people with a history of significant allergic reactions that they shouldn't take the Pfizer vaccine. There are still question marks over the AstraZeneca vaccine, the 1.5 dose. How will it work on the ground? Are you saying at the moment, can we say with some confidence that the Pfizer vaccine, or indeed the Moderna vaccine, or the AstraZeneca safety efficacy will be maintained, and therefore no concerns about potential fallouts?
Well, first of all, these are new vaccines, and whenever new vaccines appear, the initial step that's taken by regulators is to give either an emergency use authorization or a provisional license. The reason why that is done is that if you've got a new vaccine for a new virus, by definition, you've not been able to study it over a long period of time. And there will be anxieties about possible side effects. There won't be frequent side effects, otherwise they'd have been picked up in the phase 1, 2 and phase 3 trials that have been going on. But I'm not surprised that there will be side effects. There will be people who complain of really not feeling well after the vaccine. And the key thing is that they are very, very rare, and that's what we have to hope for. So we'll be keeping a very close watch. Secondly, I want to say one other thing,
Yes.
and that is that we don't fully understand how long the vaccine will be effective for. How long will a person who's been vaccinated be protected against the disease? This too will have to be devised over time. And that's why, for the coming months, everybody who receives the vaccine, or vaccines, let's assume we're referring to several, will be asked to report very, very quickly and clearly if they develop any side effects. That's how it must be.
Well, what's your sense? Is there any sense that science is giving as to how long how long this immunity will last? Is there any sense at all? Because, as you said, these are new vaccines, many of them.
There's no sense as to the full duration because we've just got to wait longer time to see that. But there is good news on two counts. One is that particularly the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine does seem to be incredibly effective, and at the same time has not demonstrated major side effects, having been offered to on more than 40,000 occasions. So this is a pretty good piece of news. And then we've got the other ones that you mentioned, Moderna vaccine, another experimental one, then the more conventional vaccine, the one produced by AstraZeneca and Oxford, in which there is a cooperation with Serum Institute in India. I think that my conclusion, having looked at what's coming along, is that we've got a good pipeline, and we should be very excited about this. It's just I want to keep stressing to everybody, and you'll bring it up, I'm sure, that vaccinating hundreds of millions of people is not an easy piece of work. And we just must expect that to take some time.
You know, it's not easy also because there is a fear that, especially with the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine, extremely expensive. Pfizer expected to be more than $20. Also, the fear in the Indian context, these vaccines need an extended cold chain storage, minus 70 degrees, minus 20 degrees. Given that, perhaps not ideal for subcontinental conditions. So do you believe that there will be different vaccines for different societies? Or will the fear be, as WHO has expressed, that the rich countries end up cornering the first bulk of the first millions of doses that are out there?
Well, the answer to both your questions, I think, has to be yes. Firstly, I think that there will be a variety of vaccines available, and some will be more suitable for particular climates. It's really difficult to use a very sensitive vaccine that is supposed to be kept at minus 60 degrees centigrade in places with limited electricity supply. I've tried it myself. I was involved with one of these very cold vaccines during the Ebola outbreaks in West Africa, 2014. They're really super tough to maintain the cold chain. So I'm anticipating that India and other countries that have variable electricity supply, particularly in rural areas, will want a vaccine that is slightly less susceptible to temperature. Now, yes, of course, some of the richer countries may well end up buying the more expensive vaccines, but I don't want to say to you now that they will necessarily be better. I think that, in fact, we will find that it's a combination of the temperature, the effectiveness and the safety, which will be taken into account by all national governments when deciding whether to give a particular vaccine a license. I think we're blessed that there are several candidates around. Over.
Which is exactly what I wanted to come to. Because there are several candidates around, is there a sense that there will be enough for the world? Or, you know, will this be a process by which the vaccine moves into different geographies at different times. Should India be relying to that extent more on the indigenously developed vaccines rather than a Pfizer or a Moderna opening itself up, or even a Sputnik to India?
Well, I mean, I think the great thing about the situation in India is that you do have extraordinary capacity, not just for pharmaceutical synthesis, that's making drugs, but also for development of vaccines. So if I was in India, I wouldn't be worried. I think you will have the capacity. At the beginning, as it is with all discoveries, there's a shortage. And currently, there's a lot of excitement about synthetic vaccines, what's called messenger RNA vaccines.
Yes.
But it is my belief that because there's quite a lot more vaccines that are in the pipeline, that India will end up identifying the vaccine that is most suitable for the conditions in your country and for your people, and that you will have good supply of that vaccine. We're just going to have to wait some months before there is sufficient available to start a major rollout campaign in India. There is not enough around at the moment for everybody who needs it in India or anywhere else. And so it's just a case of waiting for a bit. But I think the omens are good.
How do you respond, Dr. Nabarro, to the vaccine skeptics? Those who say, and I've heard them now say, these are big pharma company conspiracies. It's almost impossible to have a foolproof vaccine so soon after coronavirus broke out. In the cases of most vaccines across the world, it's taken years. Here you've compressed a process into 12 months. They believe also that herd immunity will eventually set in, and that's perhaps a better way to look at how to look at a world beyond corona. How do you respond to the vaccine skeptics out there?
You know, I'm really pleased that there are so many people taking an interest in the issues of this virus and the challenges of developing a vaccine against it. Usually we're kind of quite rare, us public health people, and we are talking often just to colleagues of our own, whereas now the whole world is interested in these issues. I've never been busier in my professional life. I'm so pleased about that. At the same time, I'm aware that there's a lot of questioning about our statements. People say, did you really not know about this virus? Is it really only been with us since the very end of last year? Is it really true that all these precautions are necessary? Are you really sure that it's right to be doing all this contact tracing? And there's a lot of anger because this virus is also really upsetting people's lives everywhere, and it's leading to increased poverty. It's messing up people's arrangements. Businesses are going bankrupt. Children are not going to school or university. So I am totally accepting of, understanding of, and expecting people to be questioning the positions taken by the likes of myself. All I can do is tell people, I give you what I know. I give it to you as honestly as I possibly can, and I'll go on doing that. I'm not going to stop.
And you believe that a vaccine is necessary?
Oh, of course I do. Yes, yes. A vaccine is necessary. I think this virus is really very dangerous indeed. And I think there are things we learn about this virus all the time that remind us to be humble. For example, some said this virus only kills the very old or people who've got other diseases. Okay, that may be the case, but we're finding there are many millions of people who've got something called long COVID, which is a prolonged and unpleasant illness that seems to affect people for many months. And we didn't know about that when we first started to look at this virus. We're learning new things all the time. And it's that reality that we're constantly having to learn, relearn, question, and analyze that means that I have to be humble about the medical aspects of this disease and the virus. And I suppose others will look at what I'm doing and saying, and they'll say, oh, he's changed his mind, or oh, he doesn't really know. And that is the reality. We don't know everything. And therefore, people have a right to question us.
Can I therefore ask you in conclusion, because you started with a warning that there could be another surge. What is this based on? What is it that you're basing your belief that there could be another surge in 2021, so you cannot say that we've reached the end of our battle with coronavirus?
I think that I base all my analyses, firstly, on what I've seen from other coronaviruses, like the one that caused SARS in 2003, and secondly, what we've learned from this coronavirus from different countries around the world. We have seen that as the first surge came down, that as people started moving around, this is in Europe particularly, that a second surge started to build up. We're seeing that that second surge has come down as a result of movement restrictions, but there are signs that a third surge may be picking up. And so this pattern of repeated surges is one that we're seeing in Europe, and we don't actually have any reason to believe that we will not see it in India as well. That's the basis of my reasoning.
One final question. There are about 50 candidate vaccines undergoing trials at various stages. There's the protein vaccine. There are, of course, the mRNA vaccine, which are already being rolled out, the DNA vaccines, the viral vector vaccines, the viral vector particularly being adopted by India in the past. Which, according to you, is the most likely to be successful? Can you say that at this stage?
No, I can't give you a conclusion at this stage. As with so much of what's happening with this, I am learning while doing. I have the advantage that I've worked on other diseases before, so I've got some prior information. But I cannot tell you at this stage which vaccines are likely to be the most useful. What I can tell you is that if I was in the government of India, I'd be wanting to find vaccines that can be kept in a normal fridge, that's at about 4 degrees centigrade, for a reasonable amount of time, certainly at least a week and ideally several weeks. They're the vaccines that I would want for India and indeed for most of the world. It's really hard to vaccinate a country or even several countries with a vaccine that needs to be kept super cold, like -60. So that's what I'm looking for.
And would you expect countries like India to make the vaccine mandatory, especially for high-risk groups and for frontline health workers? Should it be mandatory?
Well, you've slipped that question in, so I want to be equivocal, absolutely straight on this, non-equivocal. I've never believed that mandatory vaccination is a desirable approach in public health. I think people should do what's right at the right place, at the right time, because they want to do it, not because they are compelled to do it. That's my personal view. That's not a view of any organization. That's just based on my life and trying to be a public health doctor over the years.
Dr. Nabarro, it's always a pleasure talking to you because one learns a lot about the world of vaccines. And as you said, we're all learning all the time about public health at the moment. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us here on India Today. Thank you.
Thank you. I love joining you, and we'll come back again if you kindly request me to do. And Dhanyabad to all viewers. Thank you.